Welcome, everyone, to the RP Strength Podcast. I am Nick Shaw, and today I am flying solo without Lori. She has to attend to something, and we'll be getting into that on a future episode. But have no fear, we have on our first ever rock star guest, and I mean that literally. So we have Nita Strauss, who is a female guitarist and lead for Alice Cooper, and was recently ranked number one on Guitar World's list of 10 female guitar players you should know. Very cool. Nita, welcome to the RP podcast.
Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to chat about some fun fitness stuff with you guys.
Yeah, totally. So I know people must be wondering, you are a rock star. What is that like to literally be called a rock star?
Well, I play guitar for a rock star, I think is probably more accurate. I get to live a fun kind of rock star life, but I'm lucky enough to stand on stage with the real rock star, which is Alice Cooper, and really just be like a support rock star, if you will.
Yeah, that's very cool. And so can you just go into your background a little bit? Because I'm just curious as to, how does one get into that, and how do you kind of stumble upon that really cool journey? I know there's got to be a great backstory there.
Yeah, so my background, believe it or not, is actually in fitness. I have been doing ballet and gymnastics from the time that I could walk. And I grew up in competitive sports. I was doing rhythmic gymnastics, and I got up to the Junior Olympic qualifiers in rhythmic gymnastics, which was really exciting. So I was traveling around the world already at a really young age, competing and performing and doing all that. And then I picked up the guitar at age 13, and that just blew my mind. And so in that, literally like in that moment, I completely switched trajectories on my life. I was positive that I was going to be a gymnast and then go to the Olympics and then be a coach and spend my life in that world.
Yep.
What 12-year-old has their life figured out the way I did? And then I did a total pivot, and I fell into music and fell in love with music. So I started playing guitar at 13. I did my first national tour 2 years later at 15. I dropped out of high school after my sophomore year to pursue music full time. And now I'm 33. I've been touring professionally for 18 years, which seems really long when I say it out loud. So yeah, from the time I was 15 until now. And along the way, I've had a chance to play with some pretty cool artists and make some solo music as well.
Yeah, that's got to be wild. I mean, 18 years. So what's it like as a 15-year-old doing that? I mean, is that super nerve-wracking?
It wasn't at the time. Looking back at it now, I think I might not let my 15-year-old go on tour by himself. If I was to have a 15-year-old someday. But at the time, I mean, I was just a kid following my dream. And the band that I was playing in, my local band from here in LA, we did a series of Battle of the Bands, and we got to play on the Vans Warped Tour. So it was really just this opportunity that when opportunity knocks, you have to grab it. You have to just go for it and not really think about, well, is this safe? Is this dangerous? Sometimes you just have to say, this is what I want with all my heart. I'm just going to get it.
That's spot on. That's really cool. And so
relatable to a lot of different fields, I think.
I mean, especially in fitness, right? So were you like that? It sounds like you were that hardcore into gymnastics first, and then you sort of switched, but you were just like, I love gymnastics. Let's just go. I want to compete. Was it the same type of mindset?
Absolutely. It was exactly the same. And I think competitive sports, not being a parent, maybe I shouldn't speak to this, but I feel really strongly, at least in my case, that competitive sports are so good for kids, because I remember my first competition, I must have been 7 or 8 or something. And, I had worked so hard in the gym for a couple of years, and finally, we went into this competition and I won every category. I had no idea what to expect, just like, little kid. I went out there, I tried my hardest, I practiced hard, I did my best, and I swept the whole thing, all 5 gold medals in every category in the overall. And I remember I felt so good. And it was my parents are so proud, and my coach was so proud. And I got done with that competition, and I kind of slacked off. And it's funny telling a story about a kid, but it'll make sense when I get to the end. So I slacked off a little bit in the gym, and I wasn't as motivated, because I was like, I got this. And then I went to the next competition, and I didn't medal at all. I got 0 places, not maybe dead last, but I didn't get anything. And, I got done with, we got done with the ceremony, and I went back to my coach in tears, and I said, why didn't I win anything? She said, because you didn't work as hard. And in that moment, that was when it clicked at, such a young age that, oh, okay, so what you put in directly correlates to what you get out.
Yeah.
And the harder you're willing to work, the more likely it is that that work will be rewarded, that you pay off. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was able to really kind of take that mindset and that mentality and move that over to music.
Yeah, that nails it spot on. How old were you when you had that sort of revelation?
Must have been 7 or 8, young.
Whoa. So
Yeah,
that's really
really
interesting because I have an 8-year-old son, and I'm trying to teach him that. And I think he maybe is picking up on it, but I'm not 100% sure. Because at that age,
sometimes it just takes winning and then losing.
Yeah, I can't imagine, sort of thinking that at that young of an age, because I had a similar realization, but I was more like 15 or 16, and I was into sports and running when I realized that. So I can't even imagine at 7 or 8. That's so cool to hear.
It might have been 8 or 9, but yeah, it was really young, definitely younger than 10, because I competed for another several years after that before my retirement at the age of 13.
Yeah. The good old age of 13 to retire.
The good old glory days.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so when you got really going into guitar, then when you were like 15, did you keep up with fitness at all, or did you kind of just push that to the side?
It fell completely by the wayside for many, many years. And I think it was just this excitement of, knowing, once again, sort of reinventing what I thought I wanted to do with my life, and what did end up becoming what I did with my life. And it just consumed every fiber of my being, so I was that kid that, I brought a guitar to school. I would play for the 10 minutes in between classes. I would, when we got out of school and got home, I'd play guitar, and, my mom would have to tell me to put the guitar away. It's time to do homework. And put the guitar down. It's time to, come to have dinner. And at night, when she said, okay, put the guitar down, it's time to go to bed, then I would play in the dark after she was, after the lights were out, just because I loved playing. I had that desire to learn and get better.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I mean, so were your parents like pretty supportive then of you wanting to go that route and sort of eventually then going on tour? I'm just kind of curious as to how that works.
Super, super supportive. So I have a musician dad and a dance teacher mom. So they were very happy with both my career choices.
Yeah, that's really cool. Because I was thinking in my head, in what you had said as well, sort of building off that. Well, man, it's got to be hard to imagine a teenager going out on tour, but your parents, being so supportive, that's got to just be like the best feeling in the world.
Oh, totally. My dad was a musician, a professional touring musician for many years. My mom was a model and a dancer and dance teacher that married a musician. So they both kind of got the lifestyle. They know what it was all about, and very, very supportive from day one.
That's awesome. So, and now this is probably a little bit more a now question, but when you're on tour, what's that like in terms of, because I know you gave up fitness for a little bit when you were early on, but now it's much more a part of your life. So how do you navigate being on tour, being on the road all the time with, trying to eat healthy or trying to work out? I know people are probably just dying to hear that, because I know I am.
It's challenging, and you as you work with so many different people and different lifestyles, you must see the craziest schedules, much crazier than mine. But definitely the first thing I think is getting that mentality that you're not on vacation when you're traveling, because I think it's so easy to just go, well, I'm on the road, I'm in a different city every day, it's hard to eat healthy, it's easier to just eat whatever's around. And of course, on a tour bus, whatever's around is pizza and beer. So you have to already get that out of your mentality. Like, if you wouldn't eat it at home in your own house, then don't eat it on the tour bus. So I really started focusing on my fitness when I got sober in 2015. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do something with this rather than just not drinking and being bummed out all the time. I'm going to make something out of this opportunity. And I'm going to get myself in shape. I'm going to get in the best shape that I can. And at this point, in 2015, I had already been playing with Alice for a year. I had been, getting myself back in shape a little bit, but I was way more focused on sort of like the rock and roll lifestyle, partying and having fun and, eating all the pizza and drinking all the beer and not really worrying too much about like my physical shape. And when I started getting into fitness, the first thing that I noticed was how different my stage performance got. I had always been a really high energy performer, but now, with, doing box jumps, doing more explosive movements in the gym, getting my legs stronger, fueling my body properly with the right macros, I was able to perform at such a higher level that it was mind blowing. So that was awesome. I wish I could get that feeling back because that was really, really cool. And then the next thing, I guess, would be just find a routine, like find things that work for you and stick to them. Like, for example, I follow my RP template. I get my trifecta food delivered to wherever I am on tour every Friday. So I've got what I'm supposed to eat. Then I've got the food to eat. And then I've got, a workout routine that I can pretty much do anywhere. I have something designed that I can do it with dumbbells or body weight because hotel gyms they've come a long way, but they're not perfect yet.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So a routine that you can do, I travel with like a TRX and resistance bands and a set of power block dumbbells. So if all else fails, I can do my workout wherever. And then just putting yourself on a schedule the same way you would at home. You wake up, you drink your shake, you work out, then you go about your day, just like you would at home.
Yeah, totally. And so I'm glad that you mentioned all that too, because I was going to say, like, what do you do because all hotel gyms are different. Even if it's a decently equipped one, it's still not very good because a lot of times they don't even have barbells. They don't have, you name it. I mean, maybe you're lucky you can get a few dumbbells or something like that. But if you're taking your own, I mean, you're locked and loaded. You're ready to go.
Oh, totally. And you're really right. And a lot of the hotel gyms, like they really are getting better and better. I think as fitness is becoming more of a part of our culture. But sometimes you get to the hotel gym, you start walking down the hall, and if the hotel gym has a room number, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I can.
You're like, it's in 310. This is bad. Sure enough, it's just a hotel room with an elliptical in it.
Totally. Oh, yeah, that's the worst because then it's like you can't really even lift. And I mean, you can only do so much body weight stuff. But if you're taking it with you, you're pretty much good to go. And I mean, so like with Trifecta, that just goes right to your hotel too, right?
Exactly. It depends where we are. Sometimes I'll have it sent to the hotel. Sometimes if there's no hotel that day, I'll have it sent to the venue. So a lot of people don't know this, but we can actually receive packages on tour. So if I know I'm going to be playing at the Hollywood Bowl, let's say, where we're supposed to play next week, I can just have Trifecta send it, care of the production company, and they can send it to the Hollywood Bowl and be taken care of, and then just get to me when I get there.
Boom. I mean, right there, you got it set. That's pretty easy. Makes
super easy.
Much easier to stick on track. So like if someone didn't have Trifecta on the road on tour, I mean, what's it like is kind of a normal person, what do they eat? I mean, you mentioned pizza, of course, but is it...
Sorry?
I was just going to say, like, what is it? I don't even know what it's like. So again, kind of just, fill us in. Is it all just junk food or, people, does it really depend on each person? Like, what's that like?
It really depends on each person. The food that's around, it really depends on the tour you're on. Like, for example, like on my solo tours and on the Alice Cooper tour, there's a lot of people that want to eat healthy. So there's usually pretty healthy options. There's catering backstage at the shows for the most part. And those, on my solo tours, it says very specifically, it has to be a hot, healthy meal, something with, minimal carbs and a lot of protein, like just something healthy for us to eat to fuel us up. And same thing with the Alice Cooper tour. There's some standards on there. There's always a chicken dish. There's always a fish dish. There's always some pasta for people that want to eat that. But there is also always a dessert, which is hard to stay away from. And then it's about grocery shopping. There's a fridge on the tour bus. So if you're willing to, if you're the type of person like me that will go out and go grocery shopping, this is what I do in Europe when there's no Trifecta. You go to the grocery store once a week and you get your hard-boiled eggs and your fruits and, stuff you can make in the microwave, like oatmeal or chicken you can heat up or anything like that. And then you still have good meal prepped food. You can get the sliced deli meats like turkey or chicken, some low fat cheeses, nuts, anything like that. And then you have a good healthy option to just have at the ready when, if you don't have catering or something like that. Whereas if you're the type of person that doesn't like to go to the grocery store, you're going to be spending a lot of money because you're going to be eating out every single meal, 2 to 3 meals a day, 7 days a week for 3 months. That really adds up.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's hard to find healthy options too. So the grocery store is definitely the way to go.
What's like a normal grocery store that you go to? Obviously, it depends a little bit, but do you have one that's kind of your main go-to?
I'm a Sprouts grocery store girl.
Yeah, okay.
I love Sprouts. But on tour, it's whatever we can walk to, really. Because then you get into this whole situation of, do I really want to spend $30 on an Uber so I can go to Whole Foods? Or do I want to walk to a Ralph's or an Aldi, which is right here, and just get what I can get there? So it just depends. Depends on the situation.
Yeah, I bet. And that's really cool to know that you can sort of request healthier stuff. And it does make a lot of sense that they would try to accommodate the performers because, again, it can make a big difference. And I got to assume on how you can perform. If you're eating junk all the time, well, you might not have great energy. But if you're eating pretty healthy, well, you're probably going to do a lot better when you sign to perform. Have you noticed that?
Oh, a huge difference. Absolutely. And you think of it as, if you're like the type of athlete that does 2-a-days,
yep.
If you're, that's kind of like what my schedule is like, because I do an hour to an hour and a half workout in the morning. And then I have a 90-minute, concert of running around and performing, very, very physically for an hour and a half. So if you don't fuel your body properly, it really, really is noticeable. And I notice the difference between me and someone else doing the same show that maybe isn't eating as healthy or, has been drinking, a couple glasses of wine after the show or whatever it is. Like, you can really tell the difference, in the physicality of the performance.
Totally. Yeah. It really is. It's a workout.
It is.
You're going hard. So yeah, that makes sense. The 2 time a day analogy for athletes out there is perfect too. So before we started recording, you were mentioning something really interesting. So you're not currently on tour, given coronavirus, COVID, all that.
Mm.
So what's it like not being on tour? And do you find that easier or harder to develop your rhythm and routine?
It's so interesting, actually, because I don't think I've been home for this long in 8 years, 10 years, maybe.
Man.
I'm usually not home for more than a couple weeks at a time, maybe, a month to 6 weeks at the most. So having not only been home, but been in the house essentially for the last few months has been really an adjustment period.
Right.
But luckily I was able to grab my stuff from the Alice Cooper Road case. So I have, Josh and I have a pretty good little workout set up here now. We've got a set of power block dumbbells. We've got a bunch of resistance bands. He's got a lot of, like the sort of physical therapy stuff, like the foam rollers and the ball, lacrosse ball and all that kind of stuff. We have the TRX. I just bought something called the Koba board, which is kind of for training your glutes and your legs, because that's the thing I was really missing, not being in the gym, is getting to do a good leg day.
Right.
So we're kind of set up with the home workout stuff for what you can do in the backyard. We have gloves. Josh is really, really proficient at Muay Thai and boxing. So we train, we do boxing and hit pads in the backyard together for cardio. So we kind of are getting the hang of it now after a few months of it.
Totally. Yeah. You're making it work. It sounds like there's so many people out there that are in the same boat that it's just kind of doing whatever you can.
Yeah. It's the only thing you can do. And trying to cook healthy meals every day, trying to really kind of stick with the macros. And I see a lot of people out there on social media going like, well, you don't have to be perfect on this time. You don't have to stick to a diet on this time. This is the time that you can let yourself go. There are bigger things going on in the world. And to my way of thinking, like, yeah, there are bigger things going on in the world, of course, but wouldn't this be something that you can control? Maybe it's, for me, it feels like, hey, there are things going on in the world that I can't control, but my diet and my nutrition and my exercise, this is something that I can control. And it kind of feels good to be disciplined about it for me.
You're actually preaching to the choir here. I've said that numerous times on the podcast. So
I hear
just
you.
so everyone knows, I did not pay you to say that. You brought that up on your own. So
That's true.
I'm right there with you. There's so much stuff going on right now where it gives a lot of people that feeling of control back. That hey, I can't control state laws or where I can go or what I can do. But guess what? The one thing that I can control is my health, my fitness, my nutrition. Because again, if you have a backyard, or even if you don't, if you have an apartment, you have a couple weights, you can control that, and you can help set and develop those habits, that routine, and it can make all the difference for a lot of people, because fitness is so important for mental health, overall health, all that.
Absolutely. I feel like a completely different person mentally if I work out and if I don't work out. I mean, if I miss a few days, like I had to go to the dentist a few weeks ago, and I missed like a week of working out just because I had stitches in my mouth, and they said don't do any strenuous exercise or you could mess up the stitches. And I was like irritable and bummed out, and it had nothing to do with like feeling like I was gaining weight or anything like that. I just think the endorphins of being able to work out and like that rush that it gives you, that feeling of being productive. If I have a good workout first thing in the morning, I have the most productive day afterward. I really do.
100%. I'm right there. I agree with you. Absolutely. So if we go back a little bit to, being on tour, can you walk us through maybe like a sample day of being on tour versus now, maybe what you're doing not on tour, in terms of, like when you might wake up, when you do work out, and how you navigate all that?
Yeah. So actually what's funny is the timing of my days is almost exactly the same, because I'm an early bird. I wake up early, like kind of no matter how late I go to sleep. It was even like this when I was drinking a lot. Like even if I stayed up till like 4 a.m., hanging out and having a good time, I would still wake up at 7. So I wake up at 7 every day. I try to work out pretty much close to first thing. One thing I'd like to get better about is when I'm on tour, I pretty much just get up and go straight down to the hotel gym. Now that I'm home, I do find myself like, getting on social media, getting on the computer, answering emails, that kind of stuff. So I try to get my workout in kind of first thing before the day gets started. I really like working out with Josh. I get such a better workout if we work out as a team. It's sort of a partner workout. Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't get his workout in before all the emails start coming in the morning, it will just never get done. So try to drag him out first thing in the morning and get that workout done. And then now that I'm at home, it's just basically after that, it's taking care of stuff around the house. I have a Patreon page that I'm very, very active on. We're getting ready for the next Body Shred Challenge. So I'm getting a new website built for that, all kinds of fun stuff, figuring out different sponsors and stuff for the challenge. I'm working on my upcoming solo record and doing guest jams. Like, a lot of musicians are doing these quarantine jams. So basically just sort of keeping super busy with stuff that we can do around the house. Now, if I'm on tour, that whole day that I just described gets condensed into the time period from about 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay.
So I wake up at 7, I work out, I'll have my shake, right after I work out. And then I'll spend the first couple hours of the day either recording guitars or doing interviews or, emails or anything else like that I have to do. And then after that, I'll have to go to the venue and get ready for the show. So we go and do sound check, meet and greet, any kind of stuff like that. And then we do the show.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And so how late would you be there typically if you're performing?
Typically, if it's an Alice Cooper show, we usually will stay at the venue until about 11 o'clock. I guess, we go on stage at 8:30, play for an hour and a half, towel off, say hi to anybody if we have any guests there or anything like that. And then the bus will typically leave around 11 or midnight, and then we sleep on the bus to the next city.
Yeah. Wow. That's tough. And I mean, you're always moving, always doing something, I guess. And then you're right back at it the next day.
Yeah. It's like Groundhog Day. It's funny. You do the exact same thing, especially traveling on a bus. Cause you just wake up and you're in the next place, and it's like, it really is like Groundhog Day. Like you wake up, the alarm goes off, you check your phone, you wake up, get off the bus. Okay, where's the gym? Where's the hotel? Blah, blah, blah. Like you have to start the whole day over every day.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, that's really cool to know that you take time to prioritize all that as well. And I think one thing that I found myself here the last 6 months or a year is, I've started working out earlier in the day as well, because there's just so much other stuff that can accumulate throughout the day. Emails. I mean, so we have 2 small kids, so there's all that. And it's like, you just get up, get it done, get after it, and then it's out of the way. And then if anything does pop up, hey, cool, then you can do it.
Exactly. That's exactly kind of our mentality is, if you leave it till the last thing, then everything piles up all day. And by the time it's time for your workout, you're just so exhausted.
Right. And literally when you're on the road, I mean, you couldn't actually do it later in the day. Like you're essentially forced to. But that's cool to know that you're kind of sticking with that routine, even when you're at home. So that way, when you do go back on tour, it's just, you're picking right off where you left off.
Yeah, I think routine, I'm a super creature of routine. Like if I have things laid out, like I'm going to get up at this time, I'm going to work out from this time to this time, then I'm going to do my emails from this time to this time. And then from 3 p.m. on, I'm going to play guitar and write my record and do these guest solos or anything like that. If I have my day broken down like that, it gets done so much more efficiently than if I just kind of think, well, today I've got all this stuff to do and I'll figure out when I'm going to do it.
Yeah, agreed. And if you know it and maybe have it written down ahead of time, you don't have the chance to really skip it because it's just there and you just go and do it. I mean, that's how I feel. Is that kind of how you are too? It's just like, oh, well.
No, exactly. And in fact, I use habit tracking apps for all that stuff. Which I love those things. I use one called Habit Bowl, which it's kind of a Pavlovian effect, kind of, you put your habits, the stuff that you want to do like in your daily routine into it. And then when you check it off, it makes like a really nice sound. It goes like bling. And if you don't do it that day, you have to make it red and it goes, wah.
Yeah.
It's like very, emotional response, like an emotional response tied to it. And then I use the checklist app in my phone to do like, the more like day-to-day stuff, get dog food, finish this solo, write this email, call this person or whatever. And Josh is the absolute master of the physical list. Like he has his list every day on printer paper down to a science. Like if he puts it on the phone or in the app, it does not work. It has to be a physical list, like written out that he can strike things off as they go. And it's just about different things that work for different people.
Yeah, 100%. I have an app that I use, and it basically keeps a streak going. And this is not the RP Diet app, by the way, which I also use every day. But it essentially keeps a run streak of like how many days in a row that I've used it. And I'm just that type of person that there was one day where the app malfunctioned and it reset my timer. And I got to be honest, I was pretty upset about it.
Killed your whole day, didn't it?
To be honest, a little bit, because I was I was at like 42 days, and then it reset because I started it literally day 1 of the quarantine, and I was like, I'm going to keep this going throughout the entire quarantine, and it reset, and I had to go back to day 1, and I was devastated a little bit. I was just like, I can't believe this. I mean, now I'm back.
So let me ask you this: did you miss a day after that happened?
No, I can do little things. So normally you got to do like 10, 15 minutes. And this was something I think I sort of, in my head, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit. And I only did like a minute or like 3 minutes or something just so I could kind of keep that streak going. But I was like, I'm not going to not use it because I knew that I had to get back on that streak. So that's just kind of how my brain works.
No, me too. Exactly the same. And the app that I was talking about, Habit Bowl, it has a streak tracker like that too. Yep. And I'm a total all or nothing person. Like if I have 100% streak going, like, I'll get out of bed to do something so I don't break that streak. Like I'll be in bed, I'll be like, oh, I'm going to go to sleep. I'm like, oh, I forgot to take, I've got my morning and my night supplements on there. So I have to click off supplements 2 times because sometimes I forget to take the first thing in the morning ones or the evening ones. Mm-hmm. So, I'll be laying in bed, like, drifting off to sleep, and I'll look at my app and I'll go, there's one thing left. I have to, and I'll literally get up out of bed to do it so I don't break my 100% success streak.
I mean, it's like talking to a clone because I've done that as well. You're laying there. And so for me, I don't think I have those notifications, but I'll be laying there and I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm like, oh, man, I didn't do that. Yeah. Like, okay, well, I got to get up. I got to go do it. And then I do it. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm good to go now.
What's the app that you use?
Headspace.
Oh, cool. I've been seeing the ads for that. Do you like it?
I'm pretty sure there's another one. My wife uses it. I got to imagine those apps are really seeing a boom right now, just from hopefully people wanting to prioritize mental health and taking that a bit more serious. So I got to imagine they're doing really well right now.
Always a good thing.
Yeah, totally. So just to circle back a little bit, so you had mentioned your body shred challenge. And so I'm just curious, if we circle back, probably a little over a year now, year and a half, how did you originally find out about RP?
I guess I found out about RP through the Trifecta camp. So I've been eating Trifecta food for the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And, my boyfriend Josh works closely with them. And, so I guess that would have been my first exposure to what you guys do at RP. And awesome. Then I started following the social media pages and seeing the incredible transformations. And I was asking Josh, like, what are they doing? Like, how are they doing this with these people? And I think a little before that, we had the idea to launch my fitness challenge, which is called Body Shred. Mm-hmm. And the impetus for Body Shred was, when I got myself into shape and I started working out, I started, being in publications like bodybuilding.com, Muscle and Fitness. You don't see a lot of musicians in these fitness spaces. Yep. And so the music community started asking, like, well, kind of what I was asking about RP, like, what did you do? How did you do it? And the more I looked into it, I realized that there was no fitness space for my community, for the music community. A lot of the fitness world can be so intimidating for somebody that's not really into fitness. That's a lot of the influencers and the transformations and the before and afters seem really unattainable and really, like, I don't want to say unrelatable, but kind of unrelatable mm-hmm. to someone that fitness isn't their life. You're like, these people have like matching outfits and all the movements look easy. And, I don't like any of this music that they're playing. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if, Josh and I could create some kind of space for our community, for the rock and roll music community, to have like a group of like-minded people and give them prizes that they would want. And, something to help motivate them to get in better shape, because our community is not the healthiest one.
Right.
So that was sort of where Body Shred was born. And I thought, I know a lot about working out, not as much as some, but I know a good bit. But something I would not feel comfortable coaching anyone on is their nutrition, because I have no background in it. I know what works for me, but I wouldn't want to start designing meal plans for someone that wasn't roughly my height and weight. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that was where, we decided to contact RP about coming on board and providing the nutrition solutions for the course. And it's just been incredible seeing, the changes that people are making using the workout program that I made and the nutrition templates that you guys made. It's just unreal.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. It's really cool. And I'm just so into the hardcore fitness space that it's almost like losing touch a little bit with people that fitness isn't their priority. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Because I would see questions in your Facebook group, like, I would get tagged or something in there. And of course mm-hmm. I told you guys, like, yeah, tag me anytime. I'll hop in and answer mm-hmm. questions. And
thank you for that.
Yeah, totally. And I almost had forgotten that, people were asking, like, what's protein? What are carbs? And I'm just like, oh, wow. I mean.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
It kind of, blew my mind all over again, because I've just gotten so lost into the space where sort of everyone knows that. And I had to step back and go, man, there's a lot of people that don't really have much education when it comes to nutrition. And so being able to partner with someone like yourself that's going to reach a wider audience was just really, really cool. And then, some of these people, they would get these insane results. Again, they're not fitness professionals. They're just normal everyday people that just, happen to follow you or be a fan and now are in, great shape and a lot healthier. It's just really, really cool to see.
No, it's been like, and I say this to Josh all the time. I can only imagine how gratifying it must be for you guys every day to get to do what you do, because I mean, just to get to do it a couple times a year for me is like one of the most gratifying things I've ever done, to see that people are now emailing me saying, I've gotten off high blood pressure medicine, or I have more energy to play with my kids. Or, I had a couple people say that they got off of their antidepressant medicine, much less the physical changes, like, I fit into smaller jeans, or, my husband is complimenting the way I look, which he hasn't done since we were married, we first got married, or little things like that, from the huge lifestyle changes of getting off of a medication to a little thing like, I was able to shop in a normal size store instead of a plus size store for the first time since high school, or something like that. Like, these are the things that I never imagined as a musician I'd be making that kind of impact in someone's life. So it's an incredible feeling. You guys are so blessed that you guys get to do this all the time and help people all the time.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It is really cool. And it's one of these things where it never gets old hearing from people that have good results or make these big changes. And whether it's a really shocking before and after, or like you said, just, hey, I'm down 10 pounds and, I can run around now, or, I ran for the first time in a couple years, or, so we work with Dr. Spencer Nadolski, and, he'll get messages all the time. And his whole thing is sort of lifestyle as medicine, and that, he wants people to hopefully not have to take medicine. And if they need to, of course, they can and should.
Of course.
But again, people type 2 diabetics, or, overweight, obese, well, you start working out, you start feeling so much better. And it is really cool to see that. And sometimes that gets lost a little bit because we're sort of working with a slightly more athletic population. But then when we do get those people that, start up fitness for the first time in their entire life, there's literally nothing better than seeing that. And I think that's even better in a lot of regards than to a top athlete performing really well, because it's like, okay, well, that's obviously really cool.
Sure.
Those changes are just on another level, because I don't know what maybe the right way to say it is, but you're like truly making a life impact on that person that now, doesn't have to take their medicine or whatever.
No, totally. I'm going to blow your mind right now. So my Body Shred group, obviously the pandemic has affected every single person on the planet, and they are no exception. So Body Shred 2 ended like right around the time the pandemic started. And I told them, I'm not going to extend the, so many of them were like, I want to extend the challenge. I want to go longer because this is going to keep me disciplined at home. And I said, well, I'm not going to extend the challenge. I'm not going to change the goalpost now that you guys are done. But how's this? We're going to add a second, like auxiliary challenge. And we're going to do a plank challenge. And I want you guys to hold a plank every day for 30 days and try to add 5 seconds to your plank. No more. If you want to add more, that's great. But just try for 5 seconds a day. And if you do 5 seconds a day for 30 days, like additional seconds a day for 30 days, like you'll have already done an amazing job. So we did this challenge. And I had people starting who could only hold a plank for 20 seconds. And by day 30, I had them post a picture of their timer on their phone. These 30-second plank holders were holding like 4 or 5 minute planks. I had 2 people in there that were holding over a 45-minute plank by the end of the 30 days. And these are not athletes. Yep. These are just people who are like, you know what? I can do something for 30 seconds a day and try to do 5 extra seconds. This is something I can take a few minutes out of my day. Maybe the 45-minute guy, like he took more than a few minutes out of his day. But, I've never held a 10-minute plank. I think most people in the world have never held a 10-minute plank. And, one of the girls in the Body Shred group, Kaylee, who's really good with numbers, calculated everybody's percentages. And we had people that had 1,000% increase in their plank hold time, 700%, 500%, It's just incredible to see what the human mind can do if you just go, yeah, you know what? I'll be consistent about something for 30 days. It's amazing.
Boom. Yeah, 100%. I got to be honest. I think I can maybe do a minute or two plank. And if I'm being
And
completely
you're in
honest,
amazing shape, Nick. Like,
don't
it's
stop it.
crazy.
No, go on, please. No, but
30, try it. 5 seconds a day for 30 days. Now I'm challenging you.
yeah, totally. I actually, I make my kids do planks because I sort of have become their pseudo coach because we can't really do
Nice.
sports and whatever. But that's usually one of them. And at that age, it's kind of like the whole gymnastics thing where you're just working on balance and coordination and strength. And if you can do that, they're going to have a really good foundation later on.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it is really, really rewarding to see and hear that stuff and to get that feedback. And, it never gets old. And I know people might think, oh, he's just saying that, but it doesn't matter, whether it's,
No.
7 years ago or whether it's still today. Like, it's still really cool to see.
No, there's another girl in the Body Shred group, Martina, who does the RP hyperthyroid program. And it's amazing because she was that type of person that was like, I can't really get results no matter what I do. And, very hard worker, Martina, like very, very good work ethic, but just wasn't seeing what she needed to. And then working with someone like yourself who, really can zero in on what works for that body type. She's had amazing results. Like, she's getting super jacked.
That's
and
awesome.
It's just so cool to see.
The hyperthyroidism one is really a unique case too, because it's really a lot harder to lose weight when you have that.
Sure.
Hypothyroidism. I'm sorry, I said hyperthyroidism because I think
I probably said it wrong first.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, in my head, I was a little off there. Hyper would actually make it easier to lose weight, which,
I wish I had that.
Right. I actually did have that for a short time in high school, and it was probably equally as bad. And I know people are going to roll their eyes, but I would just eat and eat and eat and eat, and I would lose weight. The crappy thing is I would lose energy, and I was into sports, so it was bad news for a while.
Yeah, I guess as a guy, you wouldn't want to have it, but as a girl, it wouldn't be necessarily as bad.
Right.
But I guess anything's bad, and if it's too much.
Totally, yeah. It's one of those things. It's you start going off the deep end either way, and most things are going to end up in the middle where you want to be. So exactly. I did have another question too, and this was something. So I'm opening my morning emails one day and just reading through some stuff, and one of them that I'm subscribed to is the Daily Stoic newsletter. Ryan Holiday, all that stuff, really cool books, and I'm reading through it, and he mentions a female guitarist, and I'm like, oh, I know a female guitarist, actually. That's really unique. And I'm reading, I'm like, well, that's Nita. And I was blown away. I was like, I immediately texted Josh, and I was like, hey, was Nita just in this? And he was like, oh yeah, totally. He Nita knows Ryan. It's totally cool. I'm like, whoa. Can you, I'm a big fan of the Stoicism idea in general. I think it's just, especially right now, of course, given coronavirus and everything, fantastic mindset to have. But how did you sync up with that? And, how did you kind of get featured in that? I know that's really, really popular.
Yeah. So The Obstacle is the Way totally changed my life. Yep. Like probably a lot of other people's. But I read The Obstacle is the Way at exactly the right time.
Yep.
It was something that I really, really needed, like that mentality shift, to hear the impediment to action advances action, what stands in the way becomes the way. Like that was something that, so many people think, well, if it's hard, you're probably not supposed to be doing it, and to hear sort of the complete opposite philosophy broken down so succinctly and with so many great examples, reading the Nick Saban quotes in the book and reading all the different great thinkers from, sort of the modern generation, echoing back to those ancient thoughts. It just blew my mind. So I think the way that we had gotten in touch was I put up a post about it. I think I just posted and tagged them and just said, hey, if you guys are looking for reading material like this, completely changed my life. And I ended up getting in touch with Ryan Holiday, and he interviewed me for the Daily Stoic blog, which was a huge honor. Again, of like this, something that I normally don't get to talk about stuff outside of like, how long have you been playing guitar? And who are your favorite guitar players? And what advice do you have for young musicians? To kind of step out into something else that I'm super passionate about and get to chat about mindset and dedication and mentality and overcoming obstacles. That was a really, really cool chance to get to speak with him about that. So yeah, it's cool that he hearkened back to it in the newsletter.
Yeah, totally. So just for someone that maybe doesn't subscribe to that, doesn't really know what we're talking about, can you maybe just give a quick example of how you use the Stoicism mindset into how that relates into what you do now when you're performing?
Yeah, I think the best example would probably be Memento Mori. And that is, when they would return from battles, and when they were celebrating the victory and everything seemed amazing, they'd have parades in the streets, and wine and women, and this really over the top festivity. They would have one slave stand over the general's ear and whisper to him Memento Mori, which means remember you're immortal. Remember that all of this is going to end someday, and it's not going to mean anything. Don't get caught up in your own hype, because it's all going to end someday. And I feel like that relates so closely to my life as a musician. You go on stage and you have, thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people cheering and screaming your name, and, have all this adoration and attention. And, same thing on social media, like, the likes and the comments and all this stuff. But none of it really means anything. You can't take it with you. So you have to remember not to get caught up in all that and just focus on what's important.
Yeah. And having some gratitude for the opportunities that you do have rather than sort of taking it for granted.
Absolutely. It's good to be confident, but it's not good to be cocky. You can't be like, yeah, I deserve all this. I should have all this adoration. I should have all this attention, to have that gratitude and take a step back and appreciate each moment rather than, and savor it rather than just kind of throwing it away.
Yeah. Boom. That's awesome. I again, I agree 100%. So this has been really cool to hear that. And yeah, it was cool. I literally remember texting Josh and I was like, dude, I didn't know this. That is really cool. I have a question that probably builds off of that a little bit. So, if you're performing or whatever, how do you deal with critics?
I think the most important thing with criticism is to remember that it doesn't really change anything. Someone else's opinion doesn't really change anything about what you actually do. It's not like my heroes are out there sending messages like, you suck. My heroes and my peers are telling me that I'm on the right track. It's just people that I think they used to say people that can't do teach. And now I think people that can't do just comment on the internet. And I don't think you have to look much further than Spencer's Instagram, which, by the way, best memes in the game on Dr. Nadolski's Instagram. But I mean, I see it's a great example right there of someone who is constantly putting out great information and getting random people that, generally don't seem to know much of what they're talking about, just criticizing it.
Mm-hmm. An interesting thing that I try to think of when it comes to criticism, I think most people would be lying if they would say that it doesn't impact them. Now, there's a difference between letting it impact you for an extended period of time or just sort of seeing it, acknowledging it, and then moving on. But It seems to, and this is what you had just touched on a little bit, when you're criticized, it's almost never by people that are above you or really on the same level. It's always people that are trying to take shots that, haven't done it before. And that sort of goes back to the, Teddy Roosevelt quote from the early 1900s. And it's like, well, shoot, if that was going on, 120 years ago, I mean, it's still human nature. Here we are in 2020 and we're still dealing with this probably on a bigger level because of social media.
Absolutely. And I'll take your almost never and raise it to a never, because it is literally never anybody I've never seen any super successful musician on there, criticizing other musicians vibrato. I've never seen, a really successful bodybuilder go on and critique a new lifter's form. You suck.
Exactly.
That'll never happen. Maybe like a little, constructive critique, but not, the kind that we're talking about. I think the important thing is really to realize that whatever it is, whether it's, a good comment or a bad comment or a critique or, someone giving you a compliment, it doesn't actually change anything about what you did. Josh told me a long time ago when we first started dating, and I used to get really down after, reading some of the comments about myself. There's a there's a music site, which is kind of like the TMZ of rock music. And the comments on there are just a cesspool. There's never anything good on there. It's, there's few and far between, but for the most part, it's just people's being jerks just because that's their space to go and be a jerk. Mm-hmm. And I would go in there and read it, and I'd have something great happen in my life, and I'd go on there, and it was just crass, rude, overtly sexual, just disgusting comments in there. And I'm like, does nothing that I do, I would get tears in my eyes, but does nothing that I do mean anything? Or I always only going to have this? And he said, just don't look at it. Mm-hmm. Whether they're saying good things or whether they're saying bad things, just, keep your eyes on the prize and focus on what's important. And, the good things will come.
Yeah, man, it's tough out there on social media. And I think it's really hard. I don't know if it's human nature, but I find myself like I have to read it, and now I'll laugh. And so actually, before we started the podcast today, I had looked at some stuff, and I was just kind of smiling. And my wife looked over. She's like, "What are you laughing about?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just reading some reviews and comments." And one of them was actually about this podcast. I'm just like, "Oh boy, like here we go." And it's just it's really interesting to me how you can have 1,000 reviews, and you can have 999 5-star reviews, and you have one bad review, and that's the one that we tend to focus on as humans. And it's just blows my mind. I'm like, stop, why am I doing this? But I can't.
That's absolutely, it's so true. It's so true. And now what's funny is, as I'm sure you know, people know this. Now, people see that the way to get attention from you is to say something negative for no reason. And I have fallen into this trap. Everybody's guilty of falling into it at one point or another. But, you have 100 comments on the post, and one says something rude or something, completely out of the blue. And so the human nature is to step in and defend yourself and say, I didn't say that, or I didn't do that, or like, what you say is, and then they say, oh, well, she responded. So they got exactly what they wanted. It has nothing to do with actually not liking what I'm doing. It's just about getting a response, getting acknowledgement.
Yeah, it is really unfortunate. And listen, social media is good for a lot of things, but it's sort of equally bad in a lot of regards too. So it's one of those double-edged swords.
Yes, exactly. Josh has a clothing company called Beverly Kills, and their whole motivation, the whole message is, empowerment, being yourself, not letting your ego take over. Very, very similar to the Stoic philosophy. They have a shirt, ego kills talent. They have another shirt that says stay humble or be humbled. Another one says integrity, not for sale. And, the whole message of these shirts is like overwhelmingly positive and, supportive. And, they give shout outs to people that wear their stuff all the time. And then people go in the comment section and just are like needlessly negative. Yeah. It's like, for what? This is a company doing good things and, helping people and spreading a positive message. And you're going to go in and like, is it that important in your day to, talk bad in the comment section of a t-shirt company?
Yeah, that probably leads to a whole nother podcast about the motivations of folks that choose to do that. But I won't go down that
It's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, for sure. I had one last question that I wanted to ask you, and then I know you got to get going. You're super, super busy. So being a guitarist as accomplished as yourself, I'm just curious as to like how often you still sort of train or practice your craft nowadays?
Not as much as I'd like to be perfectly honest. One thing that I'm really sort of hoping to take a step back and do during this isolation time is to focus in on my craft a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But as you know, as so many great athletes know, and so many entrepreneurs know, the more success you find in your field, the less time you actually get to spend in your field. I feel like, there's so many other things that go into the Nita Strauss brand, for lack of a better word, keeping up with the different social media pages and creating the content to post and, writing new music and doing these guest appearances and doing, interviews and podcasts and starting our different ventures like the fitness challenge. And I just released a guitar course, an online course for people that are picking up the guitar for the very first time that want to learn how to play. So Getting that off the ground, which is, if you guys want to check that out, it's iwanttoplayguitar.com. And that's for literally somebody that has just picked up the guitar for the first time and wants to learn. So, getting the instructional course off the ground, like all these different things. And by the end of the day, you're like struggling to get your workout in and prep your food and, not be busy. And then you go, oh yeah, I didn't practice today.
Totally.
So it's hard.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That is really cool to know. Yeah. I was curious, and you nailed it again, because you just get so wrapped up in all these other things that it's hard to kind of get back to what got you there, so to speak.
It is. It really is. And I think it's just about prioritizing, finding the time in the day, and but really finding the time is the hardest part. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like you would think that the days during the isolation and the quarantine would be really long, but I feel like they're actually really short.
Which is saying
like
something.
It was just the weekend, wasn't it? Like, wasn't it just the weekend yesterday, and now it's going to be Thursday tomorrow?
Well, yeah. So that's one of these things where I don't even know what day it is right now. If you ask me, I'd be like, I don't know. It's Saturday or Monday. I don't know.
Exactly.
That's really cool. Well, so thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this stuff. It's just super fascinating. And, a lot of stuff we do on here is just so centered on folks that are, fitness is sort of their priority or life or whatnot. And to hear someone that, has is literally a rock star, and then, also likes fitness and has this really cool journey. It was really great to hear about. And so if someone wants to keep up with you, where can they, do so online?
So I am Hurricane Nita on all the social media platforms. You can find me at Nita Strauss on Facebook. My website is nitastrauss.com. And if anybody's interested in the guitar lessons, that website is iwanttoplayguitar.com. And as soon as we launch the next Body Shred Challenge, I'll be posting about that across all the social media pages as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I love hearing the mindset stuff, especially about Stoicism. That's really cool. And so we'll just say thank you, and we wish you all the best of luck. And hopefully, the quarantine's ending and you'll be back on tour in no time.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you guys have done for the Body Shred community and the music community. And just know that your work and Spencer's memes are very much appreciated.
Oh, thank you. I'll pass that along. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep. Until the next time, folks, we'll be back with the RP Strength Podcast.